So we're moving back from the coffee break, and we're jumping to the next part of the discussions. So the first part in the morning establishes why certification matters. Now the next session will look at the framework itself. So the first presentation, we will be really grateful if the room was a little more quiet and everybody gets a seat. Okay. So I will hand over to Micah Forenbach, which is the head of sector in DigiConnect, to guide us through the CSA update and the new European Cybersecurity Certification Framework. Micah, please. Yes.
So good morning, or almost afternoon. So thanks for the opportunity to presenting to you the new certification framework. You have heard already some initial headlines from our Deputy Director General this morning, and I will try to dive a bit deeper into what are the main changes that the Commission has proposed in the regulation, and of course then hopefully we will have a lively discussion also in the panel discussion afterwards. So maybe first to also put things a bit into perspective, what is CSA 2 about? So the proposal is about reinforcing Europe's cyber capabilities. I think recently there has not been one day that didn't remind us how important it is that we think about cybersecurity and reinforce our posture, not only for governments, but also obviously for critical infra, SMEs, enterprises. And in this context, the certification has been framed in the CSA 2 as an important tool to deliver technical assurance on critical technologies. And the aim is, of course, to make this tool the most effective possible for businesses. So to not only make it effective to deliver trust, but to also work on its attractiveness and efficiency. And there, of course, one major change of paradigm in the ECCF is the fact that certification should also be a tool to demonstrate compliance. So I think this also echoes some of the messages we have heard from the industry this morning, that certification should of course directly also build on the market needs, while also delivering on trust that the user side is expecting. So how maybe first to frame how the certification relates to the other pillars in the CSA 2. There are very important synergies that I think are important to understand also for stakeholders, to see how the Commission intends indeed to deliver on its objectives to both reinforce cyber capabilities of the EU, but of course also taking into account the need to take the market on board and also deliver on efficiency and simplification. Obviously also a very important goal for the European Commission under this mandate to force the competitiveness and simplification. So four main pillars of the CSA 2. The CSA 2 is a regulation and also includes one directive, which are the amendments to the NIS2 directive. So first of all, one important and major announcement of the CSA 2, and I will also highlight the links to the certification framework, is the fact that we have delivered for the first time a harmonized framework to tackle non-technical risks at European level. So the CSA2 includes a so-called ICT supply chain risk framework that basically allows the EU, based on a coordinated risk assessment involving the member states, to designate critical ICT assets, and for those to implement mitigation measures, of course taking into account also the market impact, but to move towards a common approach towards the identification of high-risk suppliers, and also, of course, ways and to address risks that they might present to supply chains. So here, I will also elaborate on the link to certification, because there has been clearly a need to anchor technical assurance in a more comprehensive policy approach that also looks at broader risks. Second, European certification framework that I will present to you. We will dive into it in a minute. Third, the simplification measures that we are presenting with regard to the scope of the NIS2 directive. And here, one major announcement is the possibility for entities to demonstrate conformity with NIS2 using a cyber posture scheme. So here again, the link with the certification framework that will enable the development of such schemes that also certify cybersecurity risk management measures. And of course, other simplification measures in the NIS2 include clarification of the scope and also support from ENISA to member states in supervision. Fourth important pillar, and actually equally having ramifications with all of these key measures, is of course the fact that we cannot have a strong cyber posture without a strong agency for cybersecurity. So the CSA2 aims to reinforce the capabilities of ENISA. And of course here the aim is to reinforce the support that ENISA can provide to the member states and to the broader ecosystem. So on delivering situational awareness, support for operational coordination, but also on improving and reinforcing Europe's leadership on standardization and of course filling the skills gap. So important announcements also on the establishment of a skills attestation, European skills attestation framework, in which ENISA is also playing an important role. So this is to introduce you to the overall CSA2, and let's now dive a bit into the certification framework. So what are the main changes we have been proposed? We have proposed as Commission three main changes that I will present to you. First, about the clarification and extension of the scope. So one important clarification that has been made in the proposal, and also with the creation of the ICT supply chain mechanism, is that certification is about technical assurance. It has to be anchored in a broader policy approach, as I mentioned. But certification is not about tackling broader risks related to concerns about foreign interference. It's about delivering security assurance that a product, service, process meets certain technical controls that are defined in the scheme, and as such, of course, to support delivering also trust to users. So here, if you're looking for the clarification in the proposal, it's in a recital, I think 77, if I'm not mistaken. There's also a small editorial glitch, by the way, but this is also where we highlight this differentiation, and of course it also appears in the overall design of the CSA2 proposal that delivers at the same time, next to certification, on a tool to tackle more the non-technical risk factors. All of these elements, of course, under discussions also with the member states and soon the co-legislators. Another important element to highlight in terms of clarification of scope is the fact that certification cannot be indeed delivered without ignoring, of course, the broader challenges we face. And here we have clarified in the proposal that, for instance, high-risk suppliers cannot be eligible to certification, that they can also not, that conformity assessment bodies also cannot stem from certain countries of concerns that have been designated as such by the European Union, and that holders of certificates also cannot include certain assets stemming from high-risk suppliers. So if you want to deliver technical assurance, and this has been a big lessons learned from the past 5 to 6 years, that the certification framework has been implemented, you cannot ignore the broader cybersecurity concerns. And this is why, indeed, now this link has been clearly established in the proposal. And I expect, of course, we will probably discuss that further also during the panel discussion. Another important change in the scope is the extension of the scope, the fact that we will now enable certification to be also used for the certification of entities. So previously, what was possible was to certify product services, processes, managed security services, where certification is underway. However, the certification of entities was not possible, and in order to enable also to use certification for compliance mean, taking into account the NIS2 directive, the scope has now been extended. And I would say that the cyber posture scheme is probably one of the major novelties of the framework, and also probably one of the biggest impacts for businesses in terms of attractiveness of European certification schemes in the future. So this leads me indeed to my second point, which is that certification is now seen not only as a tool for security assurance, but has to at the same time be designed with businesses in mind. And it also echoes some criticism that we heard this morning about the fact that, typically certification might only be attractive or accessible to larger companies. And definitely the new paradigm for certification is that it should become attractive to all types of businesses. And one way is, of course, to, let's say, increase the return on investment. Certification has certainly a cost, but the idea is now that this cost can also not only benefit to increasing your reputation in terms of security, but at the same time also enabling you to comply with key cybersecurity legislations. So here, the changes that you will see in the certification framework on multiple layers. First, across the framework, and in particular when it comes to the security objectives, but also the governance of conformity assessment bodies, as well as, for instance, the supplementary information and transparency that certificate holder have to make available. You will see that here there has been an effort of aligning the certification framework with the legislation of the Cyber Resilience Act. So in particular, also when it comes to the certification of ICT products in the future, the CRA essential requirements and, of course, existing standards have to be taken into account. So now for the EUCC, we are more in a situation where ex post we will find ways and identify ways to determine the presumption, to specify the presumption of conformity on how you can use EUCC for the CRA. In the future, this is a work that would be done from the very beginning of the request stage of a scheme, that you think about how the scheme can be used and will enable also compliance with existing legislation. And we have indeed also clarified this specific objective of demonstrating conformity in the certification framework. So any scheme has to take into account existing legislation. This was actually already in the previous framework, but now we have also reinforced, especially with the cyber posture scheme, that of course the scheme has to build and has to be designed with NIS2 and other legislations in mind. So the very rationale also for the cyber posture scheme will be to demonstrate compliance, and this is a major novelty. And third, I think this might be less, politicized or less a headline in terms of big changes that have been made in the framework, but it's the idea of developing model provisions. And of course, this will be an important area also for cooperation between ENISA and the Commission, but is the objective to also improve the consistency between certification schemes. I like to call this new model provision as the NLF for certification. So in the new legislative framework for product legislation, you have template provisions that you can adapt, and we have done that for the CRA, that you can specify depending on, of course, the scope of your product regulation. And in the future, this is also what we should be aiming for, again, in an objective of improving consistency, harmonization of schemes, and avoiding compliance burden, while delivering, of course, on the security assurance that we aim for. And third important change is the way we have proposed to improve the procedures and governance of European certification schemes. And here several improvements have been made. First of all, the clarification of roles, who is doing what, and we heard this morning about the important role of the member states in terms of operating the schemes, and actually I will change that slide, because we called them the implementers, but indeed member states, of course, having a key role in operating the schemes. I think here the proposal reflects and continues to highlight the important role of member states, of the European Cybersecurity Certification Group, not only throughout the design of the scheme, but also during the maintenance phase of the scheme. So maintenance is indeed one of the big changes that we have done in the proposal is to formalize the maintenance mechanism for schemes. This was something that was almost completely absent from the previous framework. And here we have acknowledged the crucial role of ENISA, not only in the technical preparation of schemes, but also in keeping the schemes future-proof and up to date. And not only so ENISA is recognized as the scheme. We like to call it the scheme manager, working very closely with the member states. So for each scheme, there will be a dedicated subgroup also of the European cybersecurity certification group that will work on maintenance, and each scheme will also need to define a maintenance strategy, also explaining how the engagement will be done with stakeholders. And a lot of what you find in the proposal, I think it's around Article 75, 76, 77, if I'm not mistaken, reflect also and build on the experience we had now with the EUCC. So I think one major lessons learned with the EUCC is also the need to be quite agile in updating technical aspects of the scheme. And here we have formalized and created also a legal basis to reference technical specifications that are developed by ENISA in certification schemes. And these technical specifications are, for instance, today what we have in the EUCC as state-of-the-art documents, and where we basically now recognize more formally the crucial work that is happening for each scheme in updating these and clarifying the standards with technical specifications. So we do hear some criticism, and maybe I just want to make this comment about the fact that technical specifications will undermine the European standardization process. And of course, this is not at all the intention, because we also clarify in the proposal that technical specifications have to take into account existing standards. And we also know that all the work that is being done in the EUCC about interpreting, for instance, the common criteria standard is actually feeding back into the standardization system. So it has more to be seen as a more agile process in maintaining technical documentation and actually reinforcing the contribution also that Europe and thanks to the certification ecosystem will be making to the standardization organizations, both at European level and international level. So really both go hand in hand and will actually reinforce each other. And lastly, the Commission, our role has not fundamentally changed in the governance of European certification schemes. We call us the scheme owner. Our main role is indeed on the legal side on the strategic side to request the scheme, of course, taking into account also policy priorities and demand from the market, and to adopt the implementing regulation that will establish the scheme, and of course to, wherever needed, taking into account the maintenance work to keep the scheme up to date in terms of its legal rules. So second, going beyond, the clarifications of roles, an important change that has been done in the procedure, and maybe it's important to also highlight that the procedural steps have not fundamentally changed in the sense that, the Commission requests the scheme. ENISA is in charge of the technical preparation in close cooperation with member states and consulting stakeholders. And then the draft candidate scheme is delivered to the Commission and adopted by the Commission with, of course, a new maintenance mechanism. So I think these steps, are not a fundamental change to the previous framework. But what has changed is the fact that we increase the accountability of each actor in the change. And as Commission, we of course like to more put the burden on others sometimes, but we also put some burden on us in the sense that we, as Commission, we will need to develop much more detailed requests, and requests will need to also include a development plan. So significant discussions will need to be front-loaded before a scheme request is made, and this will also avoid, some delays that we have seen and discussions that are sometimes triggered following the request of the scheme about the scope, about what standards are we building on. So the request stage has been much more formalized in the proposal. And of course, we have introduced some timelines to, let's say, there are more default timelines in the sense that, of course, if more time is negotiated in a development plan, this is a possibility, but by default, a candidate scheme has to be developed within 12 months. And also the stages where the ECCG, so where the member states have to deliver their opinion on the draft candidate scheme, has now a time frame. And equally, we, as Commission, we also need to react within a certain time frame to a candidate scheme that is submitted to us. So these time frames are again more there to increase accountability, maybe also protect in a way the process from unforeseen developments, and ensure actually visibility for stakeholders, in particular also the industry that invest in this process, that are active in the ad hoc working group, on what are the expected steps, what is the expected work. So the preparatory phase we now expect basically that the preparatory phase of a scheme will also gain importance, so that the actual development of a scheme can be as efficient as possible. And lastly, and this is actually also related to the procedure, are the changes we introduced to also increase the transparency and inclusiveness of the procedure to develop schemes. Again, here, some changes have been done, but of course, the idea is still, to have public information available, to ensure public consultations also throughout the technical preparation of schemes. But we have changed some of the tools, some of the stakeholder tools that we had in the previous framework. And probably if you have been engaged in the previous framework, you can also testify that these tools, were not necessarily delivering on their effectiveness. So first of all, in terms of strategic planning of schemes, but also stakeholder consultations, we have decided and taking stock of our experience to remove the stakeholder certification, cybersecurity certification group, and also the union rolling work program that was only adopted once in 5 to 6 years, and to replace it with a more agile, to replace them with more agile tools, which would be the new European Cybersecurity Certification Assembly that would have a much broader constellation in terms of stakeholder participation, and also to have a more agile information tool to inform stakeholders, the public, about upcoming certification priorities and upcoming schemes. So here the Commission also has now the obligation, next to the ENISA website, that will be more an information portal for schemes under development and schemes that have been adopted under maintenance. The Commission will also maintain an information portal to inform stakeholders about certification priorities, upcoming requests, and requests that have been submitted by the European Commission. So these are the main changes that are included in the Commission proposal, and again with the aim to make certification more agile, more future-proof, more attractive to businesses, while delivering on trust in a world, I think, that still actually has a great demand, to get assurance about key critical technologies, be it for citizens, businesses, or public authorities. So these proposals are for us the recipe, basically, to deliver on the schemes to come. As our Deputy Director General mentioned this morning, we look forward to quite productive years in terms of certification. So very happy also to hear your feedback now on how you think that the changes we have proposed will help us to deliver that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Micah. So before we jump into the next panel discussion, which is CSA2 and the future of certification, first I would like to mention that we have more than 400 people online, so I will put the stress on Philippe to moderate the next panel, so people are expecting a lot of things from you. And then Georgia has a question. We have a question on Mentimeter.
The question, what do you expect from CSA2? There are already some questions in the Q&A, so we cannot ask all of them, of course. Some of them will be asked to the panel. Most of them are about NIS2 compliance and certification, so be prepared to answer.
Yes, so while I will keep the Mentimeter behind you, I will give the floor to Philippe Blood to introduce his panel and welcome the panelists on the stage.
Thanks for that. So I will ask Micah to come back, Suzanne to come here, Apostolos and Helge to join for the discussion, and we will see whether the answers provided will help to bring salvation or not. So, can you maybe introduce yourselves first before we start and explain a bit in the light of the different roles that Micah presented? So scheme owner, scheme manager, scheme operator, how you position yourself in this ecosystem. So Mike, Okay, let's start. Micah.
Yes, working for the European Commission, coordinating the team working on the implementation of the certification scheme, scheme owner. Should I say more? I mean, I can just add also, and we will speak later on about the Cyber Resilience Act. So my team is also working on the implementation of the Cyber Resilience Act. So, and of course, the synergies between the two will also very much shape the certification ecosystem. So yeah, looking forward to the discussions.
Okay, thanks for that, Susanna.
Now you can hear me. Hello, thank you for having me here today. My name is Susanna. I am the legal advisor of the NCCA Cyprus, and we are monitoring all the procedures from the schemes.
So, monitoring, what does it mean really? Is it about establishing the ecosystem, notifying the gaps, or establishing a NCCA certification body? What is maybe the strategy?
I think that at this point we are moving more from the product security to ecosystem security as we are proceeding through the CSA2, and I think that to implement also the monitoring the schemes.
Helge?
So I'm Helge Kreuzmann from the Federal Agency for Information Security, BSI, and I'm from the part which is actually implementing the schemes on the one hand, but on the other hand, due to our experience and long-standing work on this, I also try to support the work the Commission and NISA is doing in developing new schemes like the managed security services.
Can you maybe elaborate a bit on the separation of duties between the certification activities of BSI versus the supervisory activity?
Yes, both are located within BSI, but they're separated. They have different heads, they're different units within BSI. And well, of course, as colleagues, we talk for this supervisory activities, we're strictly separated. So you find people cursing in quotes about the other people because they're doing the supervision properly, or the supervision part that the implementation is doing strange things. So we release some separate parts, even though we're the same agency.
Thanks for that. Apostolos, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, and nice to meet you, Philippe. So good morning also from my side. My name is Apostolos Malatras. I'm the head of unit for cybersecurity certification at ENISA. And despite the fact that I'm not wearing any hat at all, I have a second hat, similarly to Micah. We have another unit on market technology and product security that deals with CRA. Because for us, as scheme managers, in the very nice roles that you have there, I mean, conformity assessment in general is something that we see from a more holistic perspective, both when it comes to product security in CRA, but also when it comes to the certification framework.
Okay, so we know the roles. We have the scheme owner, we have 2 scheme operators, and 1 scheme manager. Okay. So in terms of implication of CSA2. So first, have you read the CSA2? I guess, Micah, you've read it a bit. Susanna, Helge, Apostolos?
I think it was somewhere on the desk. I think we read it a little bit, yes, with a bit of it.
I would say also a little bit, yes.
A little bit.
I think ENISA read the how you call it, legislative financial fish that adds considerable resources to the agency.
Well, that one of the very interesting parts. One of the very interesting parts indeed, yes.
Yeah. Susanna? You didn't read it?
No.
Not yet.
Just kidding.
Not yet. So
Actually, 271 pages took some evenings to read it. So I think it took a lot of time, actually.
So who in the room has read the CSA2? So who has not yet read CSA2 and will take the opportunity to fly back to read it? Great. Take the opportunity. It's worth reading. 271 pages, right?
With the annexes.
With the annexes, of course. So my questions. In your different roles, what are the key changes that are brought by the CSA2? So maybe we can start with one of the scheme operator. Susanna, for example, what in your daily, not business because you are not representing a business, but more activities. So in your daily activities, what will be the key change?
Actually, there are a lot of key changes, but today, however, I will mention a few of them. The first one that we have a stronger and more operational ECCF, European Cyber Certification Framework, which we now have clear timelines, procedures, and a faster development, which leads us to faster development of the schemes. We do now have the maintenance mechanisms, which, as Micah mentioned before in her presentation, we will keep schemes up to date. The second point that I would like to mention is that it will be compliant with other EU regulations framework, actually, such as NIS2, CRA, and this leads us to the conclusion that we'll avoid the duplication of the frameworks. Last but not least, we have the expansion of the certification scope. Also, Micah mentioned before that until now we had the ICT product services and processes, but now we can introduce the managed services, security services, and of course, cyber posture of entities. In conclusion, we shift from a product security, in my opinion, to an ecosystem security.
Okay, so Elge, can you confirm or have you other interpretations of the implication of CSA2 towards the German activities on certification?
Well, being the second one, I can mainly confirm what she said. These are the main changes. They're very welcome because they really show that the lessons learned we had during development of the earlier schemes are taken into account. I think that's very important to include the maintenance because this was one of the key issues missing in CSA1. And but I have little to add except that there are also small updates which we very welcome, which may be not a key change, but that shows me that the lessons learned are taken into account. For example, the handling of documents is now better clarified with non-public documents and handling of those. So there are lots of small and big things as improvement. They're not all of them we are happy as written now, but I think it's a good step forward.
Okay. From a scheme manager perspective, what will be the implication on EU Apostolos and S certification unit?
Me, you, and everybody. Yes, please.
They told me that the microphones are controlled by them. So you don't have to open, close. They will open whenever they like.
I do love automation. I do so love automation. I mean, it's nice. Okay. It's good when you close my mic because, especially such questions. Thank you. So, indeed, I mean, I fully agree with you. It's excellent that we built on the lessons learned from CSA1. CSA1 and the certification framework there was a very novel process, a very novel thing back in 2019, and when we started implementing it in 2020. And by we, I don't mean only ENISA, because the CSA1 established the whole framework, the whole ecosystem, the national cybersecurity authorities. ENISA, then European CABs, we need to introduce all these things, the schemes, we need to learn how to work with each other. And from all of this process, which was a 5-year process, and it was well worth taking all the time and doing all the work and the efforts along that road, we learn things, and now it's excellent to hear that we're implementing them in practice. You mentioned the maintenance, which is something extremely important. Let's be honest. I mean, when you set up in CSA1 a certification framework and you don't have a scheme, well, clearly you don't talk about maintenance. Now we have the UCC, we'll have more schemes coming along. We need to have ways to work when it comes to maintenance. A lot of the feedback was also how to engage better with the private sector. The assembly now have more public consultations, more opportunities. Clearly, we built on that. Also, I will take very much welcome also now that the timelines in order to make sure that all of these things, we cannot work for 25 years on different schemes. Clearly, it's nice to have this. It focuses the efforts. We move forward in a consolidated manner, always in agreement and in consultation with everyone. So all of the changes there are there to strengthen the successes of the system already, because the system already in the framework, it already has successes, despite, and I can hear the criticism already, and I can see some rolling eyes already. But again, one needs to understand that this was not like a light switch that we turn it on and automatically a certification framework across EU and the member states, because we don't need to forget about this, will automatically appear out of nothingness. It takes time to build that. It takes time. We spoke a lot about trust when it comes to the certification. It's also about the trust in the community and the ecosystem in itself, and that takes time to build. And we're there now, and now with the new proposal, I'm very, very optimistic about what it will bring to the future.
And Micah, as a schemes owner, does it change your business?
Yeah, I think we will be more busy, I don't know, because we have been very busy with one scheme. So I think also as Apostolos said, the CSA2 is really building and taking into account the experience we had in the last year, and I think we all have been part of this experience in, different challenges we faced in developing European schemes, being on the difficulty sometimes to translate, technical candidate schemes into European implementing acts, being the lack of clarity about the scope of schemes when we think back about quite heavy discussions around the certification of cloud services, or also indeed the challenges we faced on understanding, okay, so what are the mechanisms now for maintaining the schemes. So actually the team that, and the way we prepared and drafted the proposal, is really the result of, I think, people's experience in implementing the framework. So in a way, we hope that, this framework will also make our lives better. There will be more clarity also for the Commission in the scheme development, and of course on how we cooperate with ENISA and also the member states on the maintenance. So I think the future will of course be way better, but of course also busy, because there is an ambition for the Commission now to deliver, and I think we all share that objective to deliver on the schemes that we have been promising to the community for quite some time. And what we have seen throughout the evaluation and consultations work that we did for the preparation of the proposal was that this expectation and need for European schemes has not decreased. So I think it's high time indeed to now put that into action.
Okay, thanks. From the key changes that we will have with CSA2, and Micah was highlighting them, I will rephrase. So we have the scope of certification. So we could have the possible certification of the cyber postures of entities. Also in the scope, it's mostly descoping things like the non-technical threats, so would be the scope from certification and would come under the supply chain article. We have the certification process, so we have new timelines for schemes, for the scheme delivery and adoption. We have also the establishment of a maintenance that is more structured, also with fees, possibly. And last but not least, we have the ENISA role that is reinforced through the development of technical specifications, and also something I discovered, but we'll see how it works, the adoption of cryptographic mechanisms. So from these elements related to scope of certification, certification process, and ENISA role, which are the ones that you feel will have the best cybersecurity effect on Europe? And the question that will come after is, which is the one that has the most important implication on your activities in terms of resources or transition to a new CSA. So first, which ones do you think will have the best value in terms of cybersecurity in Europe? Maybe I can start again with Micah, because you've designed them. So there is everything counts, or there are some that are more valuable in terms to cover the big gaps?
I mean, it's obviously difficult for me as Commission to pick one, because we, put all these elements on the table. So I can tell you personally what's my favorite, but just to highlight overall, of course, the aspects that we proposed in terms of reinforcing ENISA's role. We all expect them to have an important impact on Europe's cyber posture. I think personally, I think what will maybe more fundamentally also change the role of the agency from my perspective is the role on standardization and technical specifications, and the way also ENISA can reinforce, I think, Europe's leadership in this area. We know that technologies are shaped by standardization, but it's often a bit an area that is maybe also dismissed or not always high on the political agenda, but also now with the CRA, there is an expectation that Europe's leadership will increase in this space. So, and it also relates, I think, to the activities related to cryptographic mechanism and post-quantum encryption that ENISA has a role in terms of driving Europe's also technical leadership, and so hopefully the CSA2 will set ENISA on a good path for that. So I think that's really what I'm most looking forward to, for ENISA to really become a technical hub for also technical expertise that, of course, you're already shaping many practices, but I think in the future even more so in the area of product security, for instance, with the impact of the CRA. Yeah.
Okay. Helge, from your perspective, what is the key change that will add the best value with regard to CSA2 improvements?
Well, again, as Micah said, you asked me to pick one. So in that case, I would pick the maintenance, because we really need to keep the schemes up to date, need to keep the documents up to date, we need to keep with the changing environments. We heard a speaker earlier that said we are not finished in the sense that there are still market demands we can't fulfill with our current scheme, and with future schemes it will be similar. So that's probably the key change, which is most valuable for us from the certification side.
Susanna? Yes.
So I was trying to say before, I think that, in my opinion, after reading the CSA2, we have clear timelines now, when we have clear procedures, and the 4 pillars that they're being introduced through the CSA2, it's so important at this point. So in my opinion, as Hegel mentioned before, also the maintenance is very important at this point from my point of view. But also that the bottom line of this is that we do have clear timelines, procedures, and it is more, let's say, accessible and for everyone, it's in my opinion.
Okay, so the transparency, also the public consultation and this mechanism of going, so, okay, having timelines and making sure this is done with the proper involvement of the ecosystem. Okay, Apostolos, the key benefit of CSA2.
Okay, so clearly I could go for the NISA role, but okay, I will not go for the obvious choice. For me, I will shop off menu because okay, you give the options. I will. Yeah, for me, the key benefit is the fact that it consolidates all the different elements of the market. It brings together all the different elements of how cybersecurity and how certification, in particular product security conformity assessment, are drivers for the competitiveness of the EU market. CSA2 brings all of these elements together. It brings a whole new section also, conformity assessment, that we should not forget, and how to foster that ecosystem. It aligns well with the role of product security, with technical specifications, tooling. Also, again, when it comes to the market observatory, there are all the different elements there that we're connecting the dots that we have been witnessing, as we said before, from our experiences and our lessons learned over the years. It's not, okay, it's all about the trust that we said before, it's all about cybersecurity and everything, but all of this, and similarly to CRA, we should not forget that these are market competitiveness pieces of policies that are there to boost and bolster the EU companies to do certification, not because they have to do certification, or to do CRA, not because they have to do CRA. It's not about the paper security, just to get rubber stamped or anything. All of this is, we're talking about the real product security, real services, real entities nowadays security, that people can go and integrate them into their processes and feel that, okay, go out there with competitive products in the global market. Cybersecurity is no longer a certification in this context in particular that we're discussing. There is no longer something that is going to be a niche thing. Take it, use it. It was mentioned before, it's just for big companies, it's for all companies. I mean, we talk about supply chain, that's also an aspect of market that is covered. This is something that people, you give assurance, you build trust with your partners, with the companies that you work for. You wear it proudly, the stamp that you have in a EU certificate. It brings harmonization in the market, it brings simplification in the market. Now we're seeing this, let's put this into effect and we will see great results, I'm sure.
Thanks for that. Are there any other improvements you would have liked to have in CSA2? I guess Commission, maybe not the best question. So let's start with the scheme operators. Are there some improvements that could also be brought through the CSA2 negotiations?
What about making the certification mandatory? At this point, actually, from what I've read, the CSA2 and the whole text, I think it's that it's a well-structured and tailored text which has clear roles and responsibilities. But if there was one point that I would like to be added, it was a stronger incentives for the uptake for the so certification would become default proof of trust, in my opinion.
Can you elaborate a bit on this one? What would be the conditions?
To be more stronger intensive regarding the certification.
So more support from more sponsorship to get certified, or more business cases through certification?
I think more business skills through certification at this point, in my opinion.
But I guess what Micah has presented, the interplay between certification and other regulations like CRA, UCC interplay, NIS2 certification of entities, and so on, will bring this by default, no?
As I mentioned before, that we are now having to be more compliant through the CSA2, more compliance with other frameworks. As I mentioned before, is and Micah mentioned before, is the NIS2, it's the CRA, which we can actually avoid any duplications throughout the frameworks. So indeed, that will bring us closer through the other frameworks, such as the ones I mentioned before.
Are you going, for example, to create nationally some procurement rules that would be more provide these incentives to be certified for the national markets?
We are actually the discussion, and at this point, in order to see what is the next steps that as NCCA we will follow according to the CSA2.
Mm-hmm. Helge?
Yes, there are two issues which we think are missing or not completely implemented, except also for a few minor issues, but two major issues which we feel are missing or not implemented correctly, or as we see correctly in the draft. The first, we have the new legislative framework, and Micah uses an analogy, and we would have liked to implement it completely. So getting rid of this authorization, but really say we have a mechanism here which is established and implemented. If necessary with some additions, we could say, okay, there's some additional thing, but this special way we have in CSA1 with the authorization and then some part with NANDO with the notification included, well, we think there's still a gap for improvement here. And the other one that we think the scope was not expanded boldly enough. We work on the managed security services, but we think that we should also think about the providers. We've seen in member states, providers are certified, and they also certify persons. So key personnel with key knowledge is certified. And we think this should carry over on the European level, that we can actually certify the providers. As an example, is also requested from the Cyber Solidarity Act. And not only the service itself, because it creates lots of confusion. What is the service? What are the boundaries? And we will discussing this in the next 2 days in our ad hoc group. But these are the two issues which we think should be addressed in the negotiations when we work on the draft to become law.
But the certification of providers, doesn't it come with the certification of entities and the posture?
Yes, I mean, I think that's indeed the spirit. Obviously, there will be discussions maybe to clarify these concepts and you know what they entail. So we expect, of course, that maybe some clarification will also be brought into the definitions. So indeed, providers can be certified now under what we call the certification of cyber posture. And regarding the certification of people, I briefly mentioned it at the beginning of my presentation, that we are also establishing a European skills attestation framework. However, we do have also some treaty limitations in terms of internal market legislation and skills. There is no possibility actually to have harmonized certification schemes on skills as such, because the EU has not a competence in terms of internal market policy when it comes to skills education. So we also need to act, of course, within the limitations of the EU competences. But I think the synergies, to discuss further the synergies between the European skills attestation framework and the certification schemes could be like an interesting area.
At least under the EU MSS activities, we try to see how we can reuse the skills framework to get benefit from the possible attestations that would come for incident responder. That's not a one-to-one easy mapping, but which we are at least trying to see how it would map, how it would help, so that skills attestation could be reused as evidence for UMSS, and maybe the other way around. These are all these interplays that make, I guess, also progressing the state of security within the EU. Apostolos, which are the elements that you would have asked for and that you didn't dare so much yet, but please, the floor is yours. It's Santa's letter.
Stay silent at this moment in time. That would work well. Okay. I was hoping to be saved by the mic, but thanks, Philippe, for passing me a working mic for that. Okay, now that's working too. Thank you. So, okay, honestly speaking, I mean, if ENISA can tell you that stands ready to support the implementation of CSA2 once the discussions in the trilogues are finished. I mean, what we can do and what we will promise to do is that, okay, all the lessons learned that I said before and everything that have been inscribed in the legislation and all of the different experiences there, we hear them, we hear your feedback as well. I mean, we are not agnostic to the feedback that was received, that, okay, even some criticism towards ENISA, which we take it on board, and we're committed to improve also the way we work our operations to make sure that the implementation comes forward. What I can also tell you is that one thing that we will definitely work more also is the uptake of certification and be more vocal about this. For example, I don't know how many of you do you know that in the context of the certification, the cybersecurity certification group have agreed cryptographic mechanisms in Europe since last year. This is something that not many people know, but there is a document. So, because many people say, what is Europe doing when it comes to crypto? Well, certification does quite a lot when it comes to crypto. And we contribute to the PQC roadmap and everything. So, sometimes, okay, also again. Hello? Yes. I mean, I will use all the mics today. I mean, okay, and it's God's way of telling me to stop talking, probably. So this again we hear, and we're going to work towards the uptake. Happy to hear all the feedback when it comes to transparency, the openness. You see, now, for example, since last week we have a public consultation on the scheme on the wallet, and thanks to Eric and Evgenia for that. We look forward. Please reach out. Please give us feedback. We're ready to take it on board. And again, when the discussions are finished and when the ink is dry, we're ready to support the implementation of CSA2 together with the Commission and the Member States as we did in CSA1.
Okay, thanks for that. So we have a bit of time to ask around. So before we get the questions, online questions, I would ask, so you've seen here this panel, Member States, Commission, ENISA, so industry not represented. So let's ask industry. So are there some vendors, providers, CAPs that would like to give their wishes? It's not yet Santa time, but or have questions?
Yes, okay, it's on. Philippe, it was so compelling, how could I refuse? Goran Gotev with Zscaler, for the ones who don't know us, we're a cloud cybersecurity company. So, first of all, insightful, conversation. Thank you, everyone. I think it really, sort of gets us to the level where we want to get in terms of conversation. But one element, perhaps, on the stakeholder input process is, I mean, for the ones who read the CSA2, it's noticeable that the stakeholder certification group was taken out. And of course, we understand that, that there was quite a lot of difficulty in sort of get it to the level where probably the ambitions were. But the current process basically does not have a macro sort of a level of industry input that is a bit more sort of a formalized. You have the ad hoc groups that will be working on the different schemes, and then you have the assembly, but the assembly will be meeting once a year. Now, compare this to the timeline of the development of a scheme that leaves very little room to that cybersecurity assembly to provide sort of a bit more, specific input into the development of the scheme. So how can we sort of bridge that gap? And I would be actually very happy to hear the views from everyone, because we have all the decision makers along the value chain. So really, what would you see as sort of a methodology to have a bit more elevated conversation and industry input that can sort of help the process get there? Thank you.
So before I pass the floor to the panelists, a first answer already based on EUCC feedback. So the scheme was developed with another working group, went for public review. So there was first the opportunity to attend to the ad hoc working group and then to comment through the public review. And then there was the have your say related to the transformation of the scheme into a legal text. So 3 ways to participate. And now, so the version of the scheme was adopted. And at the time, there was not so much a maintenance process, so we invented a maintenance process, and we used the possibility to have the equivalent of the SOGAS, GIL, JAZ, JEDS, whatever, so all the technical groups, and we created, well, we suggested ENESA, and the industry took over and created an ISAC, and there are here some representatives of this ISAC. So now the place to be is not the ad hoc working group, is the ISAC. Okay, so there is one area where you can influence, because this, you've seen with the timelines, the scheme definition is short, is 1 year. But afterwards, the scheme maintenance, I guess, is forever. So the place to be is either in the first stage with the 3 possibilities I mentioned, and then you can participate to the maintenance and improve the scheme, because of course, a scheme, a first version of the scheme will never be perfect and will need improvements. Need improvements because there are some flaws in the scheme, but also because the state of the art will evolve. So, and we need a commitment of all players to participate to the elaboration of the state-of-the-art supporting documents. So this is a kind of first answer I can give. It's not that we don't need people to elaborate on the strategy, but we need people to also elaborate and participate to the creation and maintenance. And maintenance, I think, is one of the important also element that was highlighted here. Well, do you want, anyone wants to comment on this question?
So I can comment from BSI side. What Philip said is very valuable and completely correct. But I think the question, if I understood correctly, was also in the early phase when we consider if there should be a scheme or maybe about the scope of a scheme. And at least from BSI side, I can say that we are in constant exchange with our customers, both on existing schemes, but as BSI, as an entire organization, with all areas of digitization. So we have lots of links to also the trade associations with lots of market players. And then when we hear information or we like to have a scheme or we don't like, we are in standardization organizations. So we have lots of exchange, which of course take into account when we work in the NCCA or in other European rounds to discuss with the Commission and with relevant players which schemes could be developed, which schemes maybe should be postponed to a later stage because they're not as urgent, or things like that. It's indirect, I completely understand, but that, at least from BSI side, is how we handle it.
So sorry, Micah, but national initiatives to further develop national schemes prior there are EU schemes will continue, I guess, then, and this will also serve for feedback. Micah, any comment you wanted to make on the question?
No, maybe just to reiterate indeed that the vision is that we would have indeed this, let's say, stakeholder engagement moments with the cyber assembly that would really bring the whole ecosystem together. So going, beyond in terms of participation, what we had with the stakeholder cybersecurity certification group. So this is really where we see that the macro perspective, as you mentioned, could come in. So I mean, once per year is basically a way to bring all the community together. But of course, there are many moments of stakeholder engagement through different channels, as it was mentioned at the national level. Also now at the request stage, there is an obligation for the Commission to consult with relevant stakeholders, and then of course again throughout the technical preparatory phase. At the moment when the Commission adopts an implementing act, there is a public consultation phase as part of our implementing act procedure, and again throughout the maintenance procedure. So I think it's really, a cycle where at each stage there are different channels made available to gather stakeholder impact in the most efficient way. And once per year, everyone comes together, to take stock and set a bit the strategic vision for the year to come. So to us, this seems, an efficient process to get everyone on board, and of course inform also effectively, the planning of schemes.
Short time for another question, maybe. Can you raise your hand?
Yeah. We also have questions from online, so okay, we can take a couple of them, I guess, also online.
So thank you, Richard Scott, representing the TIC Council today. So we are very happy to hear also about the certification group, this wider group, to also involve then the certification bodies, involve the notified bodies as well. And we still have put forward a position that we would like to see more involvement of the CABs and the notified bodies at an earlier stage. So if we look at the ad hoc working groups, for example, we have often many individual experts which are contributing, but you don't always have the opportunity for the individual CABs and notified bodies to accompany that process, at least as observers. So it would be extremely helpful for the industry to prepare, to ensure their readiness, to have some insight into, again, what is going on in that group. Beyond that, the last thing I wanted to point out is that we really appreciate the great work that ENISA is doing, but looking at the regulatory deadlines that are set for us by the CRA, for example, looking at something like future certification schemes having a 12-month deadline that would ensure that there is a very clear timeline in which ENISA is expected to complete these certification schemes, then we can avoid things like EUCS, because then there's also additional pressure, I guess, to finalize these schemes. And yeah, the very last point, we really value the approach regarding the NIS2 certification. We think it's a very smart way to do it. As was raised by Steffen Zimmermann earlier, we can build on existing international standards, ISO 27001. The Cyber Fundamental Scheme in Belgium is using it. So what we would like to see is, are you willing or planning to integrate some of these proposals? We are looking forward to your answers.
Anyone wants to give some feedback on this question with the interplay of the CAPs prior to the establishment of the schemes, or even the requests, or how the assembly would favor this possibility to discuss the different schemes proposals to be established? For what is the transition phase, so under UCC we have tried to have a year of transition between the emission of the certificates and the adoption of the scheme, so that the first year would be dedicated to the notification of the caps. So I think it was a good decision, even though all the accreditation requirements were not set fully in stone. But we will improve that, of course. But this is the possibility to transition, to give first the NCCAs and the caps the rules to get notified. And I think it was wise not to immediately start with certificates. So the implication of the CAPS ecosystem in the request, discussion, strategy, or whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to briefly react, and I think we will be discussing also a bit about this topic this afternoon when we'll discuss the interplay between certification and CRA, but maybe just to say that we see, of course, that, you know, conformity assessment bodies are a crucial part of the certification ecosystem. I mean, without them, you know, we won't go very, very far. And we did actually also reflect that in the ENISA mandate, Article 6 on capacity building, that we envisage also for ENISA to have, you know, a bigger role in structuring this ecosystem. So also the engagement with conformity assessment bodies throughout legislation, CRA, and the certification ecosystem. So, I mean, I can only echo the fact that, of course, you know, they are important stakeholders to be consulted throughout the process. So also from Commission perspective, obviously in our consultation strategy, you know, that would be considered. Yeah.
Apostolos.
Fully subscribing to what Michael was saying. The importance of it is huge because actually it's essential. Actually, we cannot have a certification without conformity assessment bodies. Also, cannot have CRA and everything. So fully this, and it's also reflected fully in the proposal by the Commission. You know, ENISA has an advisory group that guides the agency. Also, now it's explicitly mentioned there for conformity assessment bodies to be there to help the agency shape its strategy forward. The importance of this ecosystem cannot be understated, and we see it in every piece in every scheme. For the wallet, we'll discuss that one. For the CRA, you see it, we're working towards it. You know, already we're having, for example, even next we'll have always like these webinars for conformity assessment. So keep joining, keep coming and talking to us. Happy to continue working.
Okay.
Yes. For the conformity assessment part, I can say from BSI side, we have national meetings with our conformity assessment bodies where we gather input, ask for questions, and allow them to participate as much as possible. But you touched another point, which also was touched in the talk earlier today about using existing standards. And that's actually one of the points where we also see room for improvement in the draft for CSA2. That the usage of standardization bodies and existing standards should be strengthened, which is not as explicit as we would like it. This is one of the minor comments, if you like, which we have on the draft. If those mentioned earlier today are eligible for this, are certainly technical discussions, which I don't want to make up from the stage, but we should more rely on these established groups, which we think is very important.
And if I may as well, Micah mentioned also model provisions. So the way we want to also harmonize the design of the scheme so that we can rely on the same standards, the same requirements by default for evaluation methodology, and just differentiate where it needs to be because the services are a bit different here or there. I guess it will help also to structure the ecosystem of conformity assessment bodies. I think we should close now. I hope it's okay. Okay, please.
No, I mean, I could gather more than one to one, actually. So
the answer is no. So
we want to keep our online participants also happy. So, okay.
So yes.
Good answer. So the question is, how can you link certification with NIS2 compliance? This is a question that is coming again and again, especially online.
And I guess the question is mostly to the Commission, and it will be also on the fact that NIS2 is a directive and not a EU regulation. So
obviously that's the proposal of the Commission is also subject to negotiation, and of course the whole interplay between how you can use the future cyber posture scheme to demonstrate conformity with NIS2 will be an important point of discussion with the member states because as Philippe rightly pointed out, it's a directive. So the Commission has proposed that the certification under cyber posture scheme would basically also enable from the business perspective to streamline supervision obligation. Another important discussion point will, of course, what will be the baseline requirements. So here again, we have also proposed the possibility to adopt implementing regulation with maximum harmonization. The cyber posture scheme, of course, will also, need to reflect the specificity of the fact that NIS2 is a directive, and there will be also important discussions on the interplay with existing national certification schemes that exist today on the market. But actually, we see that with quite a positive lens, that we also have national experience on which we can build, and that will enrich the future scheme. So I think many discussions to come on this topic of how this will all work in practice.
Thanks for that. I think we can close the discussion and our panel. I thank the scheme owner, the scheme operators, the scheme manager. I guess next year we will have to have more roles, scheme users. And maybe we will have to differentiate between the scheme users that go for certification to get a certificate for what they offer on the market, and the scheme users in the sense of using certificates for procurement and whatsoever.
Recipients.
So we will have to include this category as well. So next year's presentation of MICA will have to have one or two more columns to make sure that we have a bigger panel. Thanks a lot for your attention, for your questions, and thanks to the panelists.
So before we go for lunch, we have two things. So if somebody hasn't signed or hasn't taken his badge, please go to the desk to sign. And the second, we will share now a slide with the satisfaction survey. So you can start already completing it. We will share it again at the end of the event and also by email. But you also have time during the lunch break to make it. So we have 1 hour lunch break. We come back at 2. Thanks a lot. Thank you.